Hello and welcome to the Welliverse with Tim and Chris.
Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the Welliverse podcast. My name's Chris.
And I'm Tim.
And we like getting together and talking about all things fitness, health, wellness, nutrition, anything.
We do it all the time, but we record it sometimes.
Yes. So this week we have a really interesting topic, which is a bit close to my heart. And I guess we're probably going to call it something like women in fitness, or women and fitness. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. And basically what we want to sort of discuss this week is the differences that exist for women and men in their approach to fitness or their access to being physically active. And we'll just explore some of maybe the reasons behind that and, just get stuck into how we can change maybe some of the things that are stopping women from taking ownership over fitness.
Mm-hmm. And the reason we're doing this topic, well, part of the reason is because as the feminist of the group, I bought Chris a book for Christmas called Eat, Sweat, Play by a lady named Anna Kessler.
Was that this Christmas or last Christmas?
It was this Christmas.
Okay, good. Because I did end up reading it in April. And I loved it. It was great. So, yeah, we've got lots to talk about. But first, Tim, what have you been putting your energy into this week?
Well, the most exciting energyful thing that I did this week was I went to a really interesting course on Friday. So I had the day off work and I went into town and had a full day about Parkinson's disease. So my brain's full of things about Parkinson's. In the hospital, I see lots of different people, but a recurring theme is older people with Parkinson's who are starting to lose their independence. So some really cool research and also just practical strategies about how to help people live sort of happy, healthy for as long as possible.
Awesome. This week, for me, I've been doing lots of stuff for the Living, Moving, Being business, and there's lots of new sort of little learning curves that happened this week. So we're getting some new software to help us with our business management, and we're doing a lot more marketing for our small group personal training called LMB Fitness. Also our escapes that we're running in September. There's a retreat that we're running, and yeah, I've been putting my energy into figuring out how to get the word out there into the universe and to connect people that would love to use our service with our services. So yeah, it's a bit of fun. It's a bit daunting, but I'm really enjoying the challenge.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's get into it. We thought that since we are a boy and a girl, a man and a woman, we have a good opportunity to talk about women and fitness, or just gender and fitness, from two very different perspectives. So we thought we'd share a bit about our perception, I guess, of our gender and our participation in fitness growing up. And yeah, anyway, we'll get stuck into it and we'll see what comes out. So Tim, do you want to go first?
Okay. So I grew up in Newcastle mostly, one of 3 kids. I've got an older brother who's 2 years older than me and a sister who's about 5 years younger than me. And I didn't do heaps of organised sport. Like, we didn't do soccer on the weekends, but my dad's pretty active and a pretty good tennis player, and he loved lots of sport as a kid himself. So both my brother and I got sort of taught by dad to play cricket, play soccer, play footy, like kick an AFL ball, lots of tennis. We did a few sort of coaching things, a little bit of, official swimming, but not too much.
What about stuff like active pastimes? Like you guys rode your bikes heaps and
yeah, we got
skateboarding.
We had bikes and skateboards and stuff to go play in the dirt with.
All the boy stuff.
We'd head outside, and that was our interest. My sister was not as interested in being outdoors, but I think she was just doing what she wanted to do. I think she always has, and she was inside a lot more, thinking, about sport, women and fitness. It's interesting that, my brother and I had to go out and sort of, as part of our man skills, know how to kick a footy. But Dad didn't really care too much whether my sister was interested or not.
Interesting. What was your sort of perception of your mum, and did she go to the gym or exercise, or what was her sort of physical activity like?
As a family, we'd walk a lot. We'd go for a walk after dinner, or do that as a family. And Mum would play tennis too. She's pretty good, so I always had her as a role model of someone who's totally capable. She's nowhere near as competitive as Dad, so she's a bit more hit and giggle. But she knew how to hit it, and she's got a killer backhand. So that's my experience and role model there in my family.
And girls around you at school, what do you sort of think of when you think of the difference between you and maybe some of your female friends growing up? Or you didn't take much notice of them?
I was just thinking, I didn't really think about it at all. The school I was at put a fair amount of emphasis on sort of academics and sport. So, there'd be, I think, just as much emphasis in my school for girls who excelled at sport just as guys did.
But lunchtime, did they play?
Pretty standard high school, I think. The boys would go and get sweaty and tackle each other, and the girls would just sit and talk.
So for me growing up, it was a bit different to you, I guess. I have two sisters, and so straight away there was no young boy in my immediate context, so I can't really compare there. But we were all encouraged by Mum to be into organised sort of fitness. Like the girls did gymnastics, we all did dancing lessons, we all did swimming lessons, and that kind of thing was very present in my younger years. But then as we grew older, the other two who were older than me, my siblings, they went to a private school, so they did things like weekend sport and even further with their gymnastics. They got quite into that. But I went to a different school, and the culture there was girls were really encouraged to, be great at sport in PE and stuff. But if you weren't one of the girls who was good at it, it kind of just was a bit embarrassing, and it wasn't for you, And that's very much how I grew up through sort of upper primary and my high school years, was very much like, oh, well, I'm not one of the popular sporty girls, so I'm not even going to try. And, that's not to say that, I'm not being like, woe is me. That's just the way it kind of was.
Well, what role models did you have? As in, did you have people modelling normal female behaviour to you? Which females modelled behaviour to you, but also what sporting role models did you actually have around?
So when I think of sporting role models, like female ones growing up, all I can think of is people who were in the Olympics, like Kathy Freeman comes to my head, some of the female swimmers.
Such as?
Susie somebody. I don't know. See, this is what I mean. It wasn't really on my radar. I didn't aspire to be like any of those women. I didn't think they were particularly attractive. I remember thinking that they were a bit goofy looking, and if they're so fit, why aren't they more attractive? And maybe it's not worth and I didn't sort of think, then I don't want to be fit because it's not the way to get attractive.
You didn't consciously think about it
that was
too
just
much.
kind of part of I didn't idolize them. Some girls definitely did. Some girls I know were really influenced by women in sport, but there was definitely not the culture that there is today for female, fitspo people to look up to. So there was no women in my life, older women, who were really active and encouraged me to be really active. Maybe one of my aunties, but she wasn't there very often in my life. So and she was really adventurous. It was rollerblading and this and that, and it was very much like, if you weren't going to pull your weight and be able to hack it, then don't be involved. And I was very much
The baby of
the
family.
baby. Yeah. So I ended up just sort of not being involved as much as I wish I had have been looking back. Yeah. So I will say about PE lessons in particular growing up. I do remember a very clear changing point at school where all of a sudden PE was pretty much the worst and most embarrassing thing ever. Like, terrible for your self-esteem if you weren't slim and if you weren't sporty. Yeah, it was awful. And I wasn't the only girl who felt like that.
Is that turning point puberty?
Yeah, probably. Yep. Yeah. Just getting big, feeling uncomfortable, getting your period and just feeling yucky about it. And, we didn't talk to each other about that kind of thing. And getting changed, like if when we had swimming or even when we had PE, you had to change on the day with everyone in the same room. It's just mortifying to look down and see your tummy rolls and compare your pasty white belly with someone else's flat tanned one. Like, it's the worst thing as a female who's trying to decide whether or not they're valuable and worthwhile. Yeah, that was a rotten time of life for my mental, state.
What could have been done differently?
I don't even know, because I didn't know why it was so torturous then. I mean, I remember just there's a lot of value placed on being sporty looking. And like, it was okay if you weren't that good at sport as long as you looked good doing it, kind of thing as well. Or you looked good like wagging, like being like, oh yeah, I'm feeling ill today, I can't participate. But
and
if you
of
looked,
the two options, kind of just looking cool and not doing
Yes.
anything is the easier one.
yeah, so you at least had to have the looking good part there. If you didn't have that, like, and I remember there were girls who were super good at PE, but they weren't the most attractive. They were like fit and they dominated, but they were, they were muscly and bigger. And I remember that being a very interesting point. Like, it was like, oh, yeah, they're awesome at sport. It's like they're one of the boys. That was kind of the attitude. So, yeah, that's a really interesting thing.
Well, it reminds me of an interesting point in the Eat, Sweat, Play book by Anna Kessler.
Yeah.
It talks about how women are just straight up portrayed in media coverage of sport. So in a newspaper article, a woman, a female athlete will be standing there looking kind of feminine, slim and pretty, possibly if they're in a sport that is traditionally a masculine one, they might be showing a little bit of muscle, but most of the time they're just standing there.
Yeah.
Whereas more often than not, male athletes will be pictured as doing something like, slamming down the try or doing something.
Yeah, and there's definitely something to that.
Yeah.
Like, and Anna, in her book, has a very similar sort of story to me growing up. She hated participating in PE, especially like we did life-saving swimming at the pool, and it's just awful going to the pool, knowing the boys were there looking at you as well, or not looking at you, which is somehow even worse. Even though you don't want them to look at you, you're supposed to want them to want to look. Anyway, just the worst.
But I think that example about how the media portrays women is really a good example of what's so typical for a whole lot of the way society looks at women and sport.
Or fitness,
Yeah, it's
You
about
should
how
be
you
looking
look.
good
It
doing
doesn't
it.
matter how good you are. Things like grit, strength, determination, winning, they're male characteristics.
Yeah, they're masculine characteristics. That's right.
It's for the men to be on top and to be winning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think there are so many issues with women's access to fitness. I do think, personally, I think it's really improving, but it's not without its problems. So things are changing. I want to, talk about some of those stereotypes that exist that Tim just mentioned. Like, for women, fitness and sport has traditionally been seen as an avenue to maintain your appearance. very much that's what I grew up thinking, you know. You exercise so that you can remain slender or become slender. Like, exercise to me, when I became aware of it as a late adult, was literally like, oh, exercise is for losing weight.
A late adult.
Late adult, I mean early adult.
Okay.
Late teen, 18-year-old.
Sure.
Yeah, so my very first sort of, we do structured exercise, we train, we work out. The purpose behind that as a woman has been to lose weight and then to keep it off. That's what I feel like I've been influenced when, when I read the Women's Health magazine or talk to other women in my life,
And so what's different now?
I need to go out for a walk to lose weight. Well, what's different for me now is that I have taken fitness and done all these kinds of different things in fitness, and it's transcended being about appearance.
So
and
what do you use it for now?
I use it for fun, enjoyment, skill progression, improving on my strength, meeting other people, socializing, and enjoyment. But I feel like most women are still in the boat of, I tick this box because it's good for me and I know I'm supposed to, and I want to, work off the wines I had, or, pay for the donut I ate. Not all women, but many.
Yeah, and not the worst kind of
Well,
attitude. At least they're doing something.
At least we're still hopefully getting out there, and it is becoming more popular, I feel. Women exercising is becoming more, it's almost becoming trendy, I would argue.
Well, that's a bit of a thing when Fitspo became a thing.
Yeah, crazy.
What did it replace?
I don't even know.
Before Fitspo.
Finspo. Oh no, that's a whole different kettle of fish. But yes, yeah. Well, you see all those hashtag strong not skinny. It's kind of like the new attitude for women. We don't want to just be, helpless and sitting around looking beautiful. We actually want to be able to, hold our own on the treadmill or in the pump class. Thank you very much. Yeah, but I feel like it's still baby steps. And there's so much that's coming through that whole Fitspo avenue on social media that is also really hard for women, I think. But yeah, what do you think about the gender stereotypes between girls and boys, like at the childhood level? What toys we give, what we encourage them to do as their leisure time pursuits. Like, I'm a primary school teacher. My year 2 children, year 1 and 2, the girls are all in horse riding, ice skating, gymnastics lessons, dance lessons. The boys are all in soccer teams and, little athletics and this and that. And like, there is some crossover, but really early on, we just assume that the child will enjoy XYZ activity more so than others based on their gender. Do you think that's still mostly true?
Yeah, and there's definitely an element of nature and nurture in everything. But a new trend at the moment is gender reveals of babies. Have you seen the videos?
Yes. I'm here for the sex.
Yeah. Someone pitches a baseball and the dad hits it and it either explodes blue or pink. Or, stuff like that, where there's really, like, they have a gender reveal party where, everyone gets invited to come around and have a party and find out the sex of the baby. And, that's just setting kids up for, all these parental expectations. Like, this boy's going to be into soccer and he's going to be doing this, or I'm going to teach my girl to dance. All of these, like, really good memories that parents have of
their childhood,
their own childhood that they want to be able to continue with their kids.
And not every family is like that. A lot of people are changing and are much more open-minded and think of gender as being much more fluid, but it's still overwhelmingly, we just think of boy roles and girl roles.
Yeah,
we just think boy things and girl things.
Naturally, overwhelmingly,
whatever we are,
boys do want to do boy things and girls do want to do, air quotes, girl things.
Yeah, I guess the real question is, though, do they only want that because that's what they get told from day one that they want?
Well, you see kids all the day. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think I don't know, it's really hard to decipher because those messages are there for them so early, down to the colour of the blanket they're wrapped in, the toy that's already in their hand before they even know how to talk about toys. Like,
Yeah, so there's these
it's
positive
just there.
connotations built up before they're
Yeah.
even aware of who they are.
And often, if they want to stray outside of that boundary, like if a boy wants to buy a Barbie doll, most parents will say, no, that's not for you. That's a girl's toy.
And at school, kids will comment on anything
Yeah.
outside the norm.
Yeah.
And, you know, in a lot of ways, that school socialisation is a really powerful, normal thing that happens where kids sort of point out differences, helps kids to understand what normal looks like. And as a 6-7-year-old, you know, that just all gets programmed in.
And like I have to say, when parents are concerned with their little boy at school, you know, 6 and 7 and 8-year-olds, the parents are concerned, oh, they, you know, all they do is play with the girls. They don't seem very tough or resilient. So the antidote to that is enrolling them in a soccer club outside of school, or and like and that's just what the parents, they're like, oh no, they need to be tougher. They need to be. We'll get them into some boys' sport because that'll fix it. And I think sport does miraculous things for kids in terms of teaching them team skills, problem-solving skills, gross and fine motor skills, you know, all of that. But it's interesting that if a little boy isn't very good with his fine motor skills, or gross motor skills yet, that it's seen as something that really needs fixing.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, oh, he's not living up to the standard of his gender.
Is that less worrying if it's a girl?
Yeah, absolutely. It's
she can sit down and just colour in instead.
It's not even a question. They're not even worried. And that's not I feel like the parents just don't even register. If they have a little boy, they want him to be good at sport. They don't think, oh, because he's a boy. They just think, oh, but boys run and boys need to be strong. Later he's going to want to run around and be on a sport team. So he's got to be good at that. They don't have that same thought for girls because it's just not what's going to be expected.
Yeah. Well, something that I did want to talk about was the positive social benefits of sport as an entity. And, you know, this year in Australia there has been some pretty significant developments in women's sport. There's been the Women's AFL League, the Big Bash League, the Women's Big Bash League had its second year just the year gone. What else has happened in sport recently?
That chick who drives the cars.
Yeah, De Silva. So there's a
I care so deeply about sport, as you can tell.
Yeah, so there's a woman competing in Australia's sort of biggest car racing with the men.
How dare she?
Yeah.
Something that I always think about is CrossFit, because as a woman, I'm doing CrossFit, and we just did the Open and the games are happening, and I'm very aware that women's CrossFit is really popular, and that trend is increasing year by year by something crazy like 160% more each year, I think I was reading on one of the articles. So I think like when you look at the fittest athletes on earth in CrossFit, in the comp, those women are just, they're amazing.
Yeah.
And that obviously is just tearing down heaps of those stereotypes and barriers. Like, these chicks are muscular nuggets. And I remember growing up, if you, like, and still my girlfriends say it to me, I'm a PT now. My girlfriends say, how do I strength train and get stronger, but not, I just want to tone. I don't want to bulk. I just want to tone.
Yeah.
Don't want to bulk. Don't want to have manly shoulders. My shoulders are already too big. I want them to, and I'm just like, but don't you want to see what you'll be able to achieve? Like, it's not about the performance.
The aesthetic only.
It's about the aesthetic. Yeah. And I think so when you're talking about women in sport and the awesome things that are happening, I do think there's still a huge distinction for women. Sport is very different to fitness for women.
Yeah.
They're two completely separate things.
But what I was trying to get at with sport, you know, and there's been these national level developments in women's team sport. I think it's something that women have been missing out on for a long time. And I suppose gender roles have changed a lot in the last 30, 40 years. But there's all these old boys clubs out there of men who played footy together or cricket together. And now that's a massive network and, a bunch of past collective experiences that they have, so they can, now get each other jobs or, their kids go to the same school and
so it's
all of those.
a big network.
Networks of power that happen out of sport, and all of the lessons that sport teaches, like winning, losing, competitiveness, grit, all of those things
and being able to shrug something off, like a failure. Your attitude towards failure or losing.
And all of those things that really is why we do sport, because it's a relatively contained,
it's character building.
And that's what we look at it as. And women just miss out. But I think hopefully in the future they won't miss out as much.
And I think as a woman, I reckon like there's this sort of sweet spot where you're really encouraged and allowed to participate in sport, but then it sort of becomes unbecoming a little. Like, unless you're really good at it, you should probably just not anymore. Do you know, like socially, I mean, if we're all playing a game, there reaches a certain part where, okay, now all of you who aren't actually very good at this, step aside, go and like put the food on the table. And only the ones who can keep up with the boys keep playing.
Well, Jennifer Lawrence tells an awesome story about that when she was on Graham Norton talking about being a Burberry model. And, it was like, we're going to the beach and the shoot is we're going to like be playing American football and there's all these Burberry models around. And it was J-Law's first shoot. And she says she's there with her nostrils flaring and sweat off her face, just tackling other chicks, and they're running, screaming for their lives.
And she says they didn't even end up using her in the campaign because she just, she was too into it.
No, because
she was actually doing sport.
Because she was actually moving. And they didn't want to portray sweaty, ugly, sort of active things. It's just we wanted some people standing around, posing.
It's a huge barrier.
Seems to work out for her okay, though.
Yeah, I think she's doing okay. I was reading some articles when I was looking at, like if we want to talk about women's sport, I was looking at why women's sport has so much less coverage than men. In Australia, the statistic is less than 10% of media coverage in sport is of women. And that's just insane. Like, we make up literally more than half of the world's population. Did you know? And I'm just like, oh, well, okay, why is that? And there are obvious reasons. That's it. And that's what all the articles that I looked up said. They said, well, if you like, let's just call a spade a spade. Women's sport just isn't as interesting, Show me a woman who can do things as amazingly as a man physically, and I'll watch her. But no, like I'm not even looking at gender. I'm just looking at performance. Most of them are sort of saying, it's just, if you had the two next to each other, why would you bother watching the inferior people doing physical stuff? It's just not as impressive.
Because I think like tennis is a really good example of gender equality in sport, because there's equal prize money, there's really famous, popular, both male and female players.
In some ways, it's a good
What's interesting
example.
to talk about?
I think that it's easier for people to be interested because it's only one woman against another woman, and there's something more interesting about that than a group.
Fight.
Yeah, in a way, I know that sounds awful, but also as females, we can get really into it because we can really associate ourselves with one rather than with a team. As females, we are much less matey and groupy than guys are. I think guys really love that whole the boys on the team. So they can really take ownership over the team and watch it, and so can some women. But I'm just saying, in general, I think women are more likely to identify with a solo sporting woman than with a whole team of women.
Yeah,
I would definitely say.
Okay.
And so, but something I was going to say about tennis is, of course, men are going to want to watch women flashing their butt cheeks.
I suppose.
I'm sorry. Think of the most popular televised Olympic women's sport. It's the women's volleyball.
Yeah, and
People
sponsorship
love
for
that.
Sharapova compared to
Serena. Mm-hmm.
Like that's obviously a sex-driven
it's an aesthetic
thing.
Yeah, totally. So, yeah, you can't deny that that's out there. The female athletes that manage to be pretty awesome, but also look, sexy or,
Did you
whatever.
get the prize money numbers on Williams versus Sharapova?
Serena Williams has only just started earning more in sponsorship than Sharapova this year. This year.
Well,
I don't know about prize money.
Well, yeah, it's always been more prize money.
Well, yeah, because she beats her.
Serena's been number one forever.
But sponsorship, people paying, to rep whatever, they don't care so much that Serena's the best. At the end of the day, she's a big black woman and she's not going to sell as many watches as Sharapova is on the cover of a magazine.
Yeah.
Because less people can identify with her. Less women want to look like that. And like I would love to have Serena's skill, but I've got to admit, as a woman, I would almost be afraid to be that muscular because you get criticised for it.
Mm.
As soon as you're starting to look slightly masculine in any way, other people start tearing you down for it, and it's just the way it is, Lots of masculine women at the gym would be accused of being gay, just because, look, they look manly, they must be gay.
They must.
Or they're just not like me. They're
men.
not.
They're trying to replace men.
Yeah.
Steal our
So
women.
I think there's a lot of unfair, prejudice or stereotypes that just don't actually serve women very well in fitness and sport. But at the same time, that is definitely changing. We talked before about the strong not skinny hashtag. And social media. I think there is becoming pockets of women here and there that really celebrate just women being able to kick butt, and it's becoming more socially acceptable, I think, for women to be muscular. But still, I think there's a long way to go.
Can I play this?
Will we hear it?
I think so.
Yeah, I love this.
So this is This Girl Can, which is
a UK government campaign.
Yep.
It's awesome. So basically, I'll explain what it is when Tim turns it off. So to that beautiful Missy Elliott track, Get Your Freak On, there are just loads of examples of women participating in fitness, sport, everything, and young women, old women, middle-aged women, fat women, skinny women, everything in between, just women being active in all these different contexts, and not just being active, but loving it. They've got
Just
big
having
smiles
fun
on their faces, or they're working really hard, and they're sweaty, they're messy, just like men that you see in sport. But it's kind of, it makes this beautiful picture. It almost makes me cry because it's so great, of just women enjoying the heck out of moving their bodies. And it's funny that this is so powerful because it should be normal, but it's not. Watching that, I'm like, boy, you just never see women actually doing that. Like in the media, we never have an ad presenting that. And, this is a government campaign. This isn't trying to sell the latest swimwear or...
Yeah, it's trying to get people,
activewear.
Women, up and moving because we know that it's good for their health, that it's going to sort of strengthen social bonds, just give them positive life experiences. Like it's because it's a good thing. Yeah.
I still feel like a lot of women, and myself at times included, are still trapped in the box of doing fitness because we think it's a way to maintain our weight or to lose weight, or to look a certain way. It's all about aesthetic.
Improve your social standing.
Improve your desirability as a human, which
Reinforce
is awful.
The social status quo.
Yeah, it's just what we see. And that's why, I wanted to talk about the sort of the unhelpful side of social media and Fitspo, hashtag Fitspo.
Because this girl Ken, the campaign we just played, is a little bit of a reaction to people pushing Fitspo too far and becoming obsessive and unhealthy about their diet and exercise.
While we're talking about this campaign, we should mention there's other ones. There's Girls Make Your Move. That's the Australian government campaign. That's awesome.
Yeah, so pretty much just a straight rip-off of the UK version. Just Aussie girls having heaps of fun, just being together or alone and playing sport or working out.
There's also, I've heard, Like a Girl. Is that something?
Yeah. Which is sort of taking the
off
you
that,
throw
you
like
throw
a girl.
like a girl. It's
and
like,
just being
this
like,
is how girls throw.
Yeah. And it's a cool little ad, the Like a Girl one, where they get some women in a studio of all different ages and say, hey, can you show me, running like a girl or throwing like a girl? And what's really interesting is the older women, ones into their mid and late teens and older, have been socialised, sort of
to
the
just
ad
put on
suggests,
this performance.
they do the really poor movement.
Like Phoebe running through the park in Friends.
They look feeble. Whereas the younger kids, the younger girls, hey, show me this like a girl, and they just try their hardest and do their best.
No, they don't say like a girl. They just say, show me running.
No, they say, show me running like a girl. Oh. And the little girl is just...
Yes!
Yeah.
Yeah, so funny. And where do we lose that? Where do we lose that belief that girls have just as much access as boys? Because I feel like my little girls in year 2, despite that they're being told to do certain types of fitness, their parents are enrolling them in, gymnastics and dance, whatever. When we have our PE lessons and I'm telling them all to hop along the floor like apes or, do X, Y, Z, the girls, they are just as into it as the boys. They're little scrappers.
Hi. Okay, so I'm going to just give you some actions to do. Just do the first thing that comes to mind. Show me what it looks like to run like a girl.
20-something blonde, clomping in heels.
And she's even like, my hair.
Yeah.
Show me what it looks like to fight like a girl.
Little slapping fight. Yeah.
Now throw like a girl.
Yeah. People should definitely look this up. If you want to look it up on YouTube, can you just get it up, Tim? What do they search for?
It's just called hashtag like a girl.
Okay, yeah, look that up on YouTube. It's really worth watching. It's very revealing about what we just all think without thinking, I reckon. Yes, so Fitspo. I run an Instagram account where I do it's basically a journal of my fitness and health pursuits. Obviously, it's coming from my standpoint as a woman, and it's funny taking note of similar women in my field who have lots of reach on social media and seeing what we're doing similarly and what we're doing differently. So I like looking good in my photos, no denying that. I like being a good representation of a healthy athletic body so that other women can aspire to that. But I don't like things like, doing a shot just of my abs and being like, oh, yeah, abs this morning, feeling so good about that. I'm very conscious of not focusing in on any kind of aesthetic in what I say in the comments, because I found that it was really important for me psychologically to make that switch to all my physical activity is now about being more skillful, being stronger, seeing what amazing things I can achieve with my body, rather than thinking, oh, I need my body to look a certain way, because that was becoming a very unhelpful thought pattern early on. But there are lots of accounts out there, and the most popular ones are very, very much like, do it for the abs, hashtag get abs, hashtag abs are made in the kitchen. If they've got a thing of their food and they're saying, let's eat healthy, they're not saying because, it's going to reduce your risk of cancer. It's saying because you get abs. Yeah. Like mine are awesome. you know, and you only have to take one look at people like Kayla Itziens. She's got, 3 million followers? And her Bikini Bodyguard has been arguably the most successful fitness program out there ever for women. And it's all built around those transformation photos. This is what I look like pre-BBG. This is what I look like after. And everyone's like, clap, clap. Wow, amazing. You're so hot.
You're a better person now.
Yeah, you must be a better person now because of that transformation.
Well,
and like it's called a Bikini Bodyguard.
Yes. If you go through a physically difficult 3-month challenge that you actually stick to, that you sweat and you work and you push, it's actually really difficult to demonstrate that in any way. And the physical before and after photo, you know, is just a physical before and after photo. But to go through that, if you've done that before, it shows dedication and grit and growing as a person. So
what I don't like about it though is that it's all based around the aesthetic. It does. I feel like I'm in two minds about it. It totally empowers women and it teaches them, you know, useful skills. They can go to the gym and use their body, but I feel like its access is actually really limited to certain groups. You know, girls who are going to feel confident enough to start with going into the gym. It's not really a guide for people who are hugely overweight and have never been active before. There's no sort of baby steps to the BBG for people who probably aren't confident enough to get into that yet.
It's okay. Like, it's not meant for everyone, and it's hugely successful. It's so interesting. People, you got to give people what they want, otherwise they're not going to take it and go with it. So,
but are we perpetuating that? Like, if you look at Kayla Itziens as an example, no one can look like her. Like, as in, no one can look like anyone. But she is incredibly tall, like long-legged, quite lanky, and somehow manages to have big boobs but nothing else big. And that just doesn't happen. I think for anyone who's gone through a weight loss journey, they know that that's really rare. The first place you're going to lose weight is probably your breasts as a woman. It's not like this isn't a blanket rule for everyone, but most women, if they get in good physical shape, they will notice that they lose a lot of boobs and a lot of booty along the way. And, you know, there's funny little memes out there that exist that's like, a moment of silence for all them. And, you know, you've got to weigh that up as a woman. Do I want to be a bit beefy and, not beefy, do I want to be more feminine? Or do I want to, you know, actually be able to run on a treadmill for 40 minutes without getting tired or this or that? And I think it's really hard for women to choose what they want, and you get criticised for whichever way you go. Either you're not fit enough, or, I mean, the first criticism that I started getting when I got really fit was, you're so flat-chested, you're like a little girl.
And that's actually from your friends who you used to have the similar body shape to, but now you're different.
Yeah, and I guess that's natural. We just criticise whatever we're feeling imposes a threat to us. We don't want to be judged by someone else's actions, I guess. And that's dumb, but it's women. Not all women. I'm always conscious.
Offend someone.
I'm just always conscious that there are women out there who are kick-ass and have a great attitude and they're not insecure, but a lot of us aren't always secure about ourselves. So, that's a huge barrier. But what can we do usefully moving forward?
Well, I think this girl can, and the what was the Aussie government one?
Make Your Move, Girls Make Your Move.
Girls Make Your Move campaigns really nail it in that they show women just enjoying themselves. Doing a whole variety of different things. It's not all the same program, and this is what you need to do because that makes you a better person.
That'll get the results.
What it's showing is that women who have, you know, probably tried a few different things, but found the thing or things that they love to do, and they're out there doing it.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah. I do think sport as well could and should be a really important avenue for young girls, teenagers, and women. Like, yeah, it's awesome when you have a group to connect with. You're all trying. So I don't know how you'd change some of the things that exist in PE. I think in high school, it'd be great if there was a wider scope of things to be involved in PE. And I know a lot of schools are changing. They are including things, but like there should be yoga. There should be Pilates.
oh, there are in some high schools.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe everyone's school experience is a bit different.
Yeah.
But that, I think, fitness for life purposes rather than let's see who's quicker with the ball should be more of a thing. Definitely. You know, I think people should be taught the fundamentals of weightlifting or body weight workout movements
as
in
young
high school.
adults.
Yeah.
Well, things socially have changed so much in the last 50 years.
Can you remember when running all of a sudden became cool?
Yeah. Well, in the 60s, it wasn't until maybe 1972, 74, where women were actually internationally allowed to compete in the marathon. So 40 years ago.
Crazed.
There were women who sort of snuck in and run in men's marathons disguised before that time, and it made headlines, women running marathons. And it's crazy that, those pioneering running women had to do things like hold back in case they hit the wall and,
couldn't finish.
And
which
couldn't
is prove
so
that
common
a woman can.
And something that a man doesn't have to worry about, representing their gender, because it used to be a concern that, running would damage, women and their, ability to reproduce and blah, 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 blah. And, it's only just been the last 20, 30 years since they've had the same lengths in Olympic athletics for both men and women. So, everything's always in a state of change, and, nothing will stay the same.
Yep. I think social media is not going away. It's going to be there. So I think more people need to jump on and use that really positively to encourage women to feel or to know that their approach to fitness should actually have very little to do with what they look like. I wrote an article recently about why you shouldn't be afraid to gain weight. And I had a lot of girls sending me emails after that, thanking me so much because they'd never thought of it like that before, and they've always been sort of afraid of gaining weight. They've been afraid, of their body looking a certain way. But to hear a woman who's further along the track than they are in life saying it's okay, and in fact, here's some things that you may not have thought about, the health concerns of things like orthorexia and being too thin, and just, the reasons why it can be awesome to be a bit more muscly or a bit stronger as a woman. And yeah, it's really liberating for some younger women to read these ideas that until now, all they've heard is, oh, no, you've got to look like, whoever's on the cover of Women's Health, the article is get their butt, get their abs, get arms like blah.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Like a visual medium
It's very,
selling
yeah.
the vision.
And look great in the latest Lorna Jane gear.
Yeah.
So.
Do you know, Chris, sort of physiologically, anatomically, the difference between men and women and why men are better at sport than women?
I know the difference in body composition would have something to do with it. So men have a higher percentage of muscle.
Yeah.
So just straight out of the gate, they have more muscle mass, which means more power, more strength, blah, blah, blah.
Do you know why men on average have more muscle?
That's just the way they're made.
Yeah, so hormones. So men have more testosterone.
Hormones was the next thing I was going to say.
Yep.
Because I'm so smart.
Yeah, so women have some testosterone.
I'm not only beautiful, but I'm also smart.
Which is important for the way women make their muscle. And men just have straight up more testosterone. They have testes.
Do they?
Some of them.
Guys, it's fine. It's fine. Keep going. Keep rolling. They do.
Are
They
you
do.
feeling all right?
I am.
Okay. And so, aside from the whole testosterone, more muscle for men, there's also hormones for women that regulate how much body fat they have.
Estrogen.
Mm.
Oh, estrogen.
Mm-hmm. So, did you know that per volume of muscle, there's no difference between male muscles and female muscles?
You mean they have the
They're-
same output
they're-
ability,
yeah.
capability? Yes.
Yeah, they're both just as trainable.
We just have less of them.
You just, on average, have less of them. And as a percentage of body weight, you've got less again.
Yep. I knew that.
Yep.
I just wouldn't have been able to say it so eloquently.
Other factors, women menstruate, so
That does get in the way for women,
yes.
I must say.
So there's, they also have kids, so there's
Yep,
these
they have
breaks.
to take a break. Same with
breaks in
career.
there.
They have
Yep.
to take a break.
Yep.
Just puts them on the back foot sometimes.
And there's some other things, like on average they have wider pelvises, so it's one of the reasons
There is that.
that women have a high incidence of knee injuries playing things like AFL, because women's hips start wider and then their thigh goes down to where their knee is, and that angle between their thigh bone and their vertical shin bone means that they're more likely to twist and bust their knees.
Yep.
Yeah, it's called a Q angle. But aside from that, men and women are the same.
Yes.
Yes.
Very
So
interesting.
you give a woman a chance to strength train her whole life in the same way that men do, and
Plus-
women can be pretty much just as capable as men.
But not, because they have less muscle mass.
As I'm saying, pretty much.
Oh, so not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. I just find it interesting that in the way we think, they have to forego their femininity in order to do that. Yeah. Like, you cannot be an elite strength training woman and still look feminine. Because feminine is a term that's been made up. What is feminine?
Mhm.
Women's bodies are all completely different.
Mhm.
Why is one more woman than another? Like, we're all women.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Those childbearing hips or lack thereof.
I don't have childbearing hips.
No, you have testes. I'm so sorry. We should go. Yeah, let's finish this. So, tell us what you think. If you're a woman and you can relate to anything that we've said, or if you're a man and you can relate, hopefully this has actually been helpful for the guys listening in, because guys, I'm sorry to say, tend to be pretty obtuse when it comes to knowing what's going on inside a woman's head. So guys may have had no idea that any of this was sort of a thing for women.
Yeah.
Because they're not thinking about
Guys
that.
are dumb, Chris.
Yeah, they're
That's my
pretty
experience.
dumb.
They're just clueless stereotypes.
But I'm saying they may not know what women are thinking unless they're Mel Gibson.
As the social majority, we have the option of just pretending to be clueless or choosing to be clueless.
I love it. I love it. I hadn't realised you'd cottoned on to that and that you could be working that to your advantage. All right. We will see you next week. Thanks for listening, guys.
Sorry. Not sorry. See you.